Alright, welcome everyone to this OWee live stream. My name is Patrick.
My name's Klaus. What's going on?
Yeah, we're just gonna. This is a game that was played around a year and a half ago of our first team. As you can see, this is Ultimate Frisbee with this is the Force Elektro first team, so the university first team. In this year, actually, that you're seeing right now, we later went on to win the national championship in the season, and Klaus and myself both had a part in training that squad. I was the trainer of the team, and Klaus was giving us the strength and conditioning workouts for this team, which got us in shape to win the championship. So yeah, we're just going to explain the game a little bit, do some commentary, and see how it goes. So what we can see there is the disc was overthrown, which means there's a turnover. So if you throw the disc into the ground or it gets blocked or intercepted, then the other team gets the disc.
Should we explain the rules of the game first?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Okay. So as you can see, each team has 7 players on the field. So Force Elektro, our team is in white, and we have the other team in black. The game is played on a half of a soccer field, and we can see 2 end zones. So what you see there with the 2 cones and 1 line down the middle of the field is 1 end zone, and there's the same thing on the other side. And the goal is to catch the disc inside that end zone, as we're going to try to do right now.
So this is an example of what not to do. So that was a slightly creative throw by one of our players there. An overhead throw called a hammer. And that just missed the target completely.
It's pretty easy, but unfortunately we have a mediocre player right there with the throw.
Yeah, so we can now see that the disc went out the back of the field. So the black team can now walk it up to the front of the end zone. Now the disc is live. And as you can see, you're not allowed to move with the disc, but you are allowed to pivot just like in basketball. So the idea is you have to work the disc up the field by passing it up. And as you can see here, we're dominating the dark team on defense as they cannot get it out of their own half of the field, but we're struggling to score right now.
And that's Patrick, our commentator, with the disc right there. We just threw for the score. So as you can see, we caught the disc in the end zone that we're attacking, and because of that, now we gain 1 point and we're up 1-0 in the game. What's going to happen now is that we'll take the disc and we'll do what's called a pull, which means we're going to throw it as far as we can down to the other side of the field, where the other team is now going to try to attack in the other direction.
Yeah, so Klaus, why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of like what kind of a sport Frisbee is, Ultimate, I mean, because you may know the sport as Frisbee, but the real name is Ultimate Frisbee. But what kind of sports it is, kind of like what sports is it similar to, what kind of skill sets do you need to play it well, etc., etc.
Yeah, Ultimate is quite similar to American football, for those of you that know American football. There's a lot of similarities. One big difference is the continuity of the game, so we don't stop between each play as we do in American football. And it's a non-contact sport, so especially on a higher level, we do have some physical contact, but in a strict sense of the rules, there's actually no physical contact allowed. And some other similarities can be found to soccer on offense. The flow of the game is quite similar to soccer. And on defense, it's somewhat like basketball.
Yeah, so on defense, right now what you're seeing is mostly man-to-man defense, or person-to-person defense. That's what you'll see sometimes in sports like hockey and football in certain situations where your job as a defender is just to mark one person and stick with them and try and apply enough pressure that you can either intercept or block it, or that you can force them to throw it away into the ground. Another tactic that we might see later on in the game is a zone. I think this is used a lot more often in football and hockey. So if you've played those sports and basketball as well, you'll know that it's where you mark space and you cover anyone that comes into your space, and you can try and get a block like that.
So one thing that we should understand about Ultimate is that if you throw the disc away, so if you throw it out of bounds, if you throw it onto the ground, or if the other team catches it so that you miss your pass to your player, then that's what we call a turnover. And in a turnover, that's a switch of possession. So then the other team starts with the disc and tries to attack to the other side.
So I think right now we'll just go through kind of some play-by-play commentary, and stay tuned a bit later on in the live stream to see how you can get involved in the club, and how you could potentially become a national champion, and how you can do that in your first year of playing, potentially even. So it's very exciting, but just stay tuned and we'll go through the game bit by bit. So we've now got our offensive line out. They're picking up the disc. They center it to me. And right now I'm waiting for cuts. So the cut is when someone downfield runs and gets open to try and get the disc. So we've now dumped it back to the other handler. The handlers are the two people in the back usually who have most disc contact. And now we're working it up the line. Deep shot goes up. But unfortunately is a classic example of a rookie trying to do too much. And throws it out of bounds. So now, A, because it went out, and B, because it wasn't caught, it's a turnover. So then the disc will come in where it passed the line going out.
Yeah. So one thing that we should also say about Force Elektro is that we're a very international society. So all our practices and everything is done in English. We have many internationals. So out here on the fields, we have a German, we have a Spanish, we have a couple Dutch, we have a Belgian. So that's one of the great things about Force Elektro, if you're international, is that it's a great way to meet a lot of different English-speaking people and play a sport in an English-speaking environment.
Yep. And we also have about 50% Dutch people as well. So if you are a Dutch student and you want to join the international society, you won't be on your own. 50% of the club is Dutch, 50% is international, but it provides a really nice kind of atmosphere and environment. So you see there's an upline cut, and it's thrown away at the start of the end zone. Now it's turnover, so they can just pick up the disc because it was intercepted, so they can continue playing. And now they're trying to work it up the field by passing it quickly.
So Patrick, what would you say? How many people play Ultimate in the Netherlands?
Well, Ultimate is one of the fastest growing sports in the Netherlands. I think it was actually the fastest growing sport in the Netherlands recently. And we're around the 2,000 mark, I'd say right now. So it's a relatively small sport. However, it's growing massively. But you know, one of the nice things about it being small is you can not instantly, but you can very quickly get to the highest level. So as we see here, our team in this situation was predominantly first years. So about 40 to 50% first years, I believe. Yet we still managed to train really hard. We trained about 5 hours a week here for the first team to get good and play at the highest level. But one of the nice things is coming from other sports if you've played it in the past. So if you've played basketball, football, hockey, any of those sports, but also other intense sports, you'll really quickly pick up the sport as there are a lot of similarities. And as soon as you learn how to throw and catch, I mean, it opens up the rest of the game to you.
Yeah. And one of the great things is that we have different positions which you can play. And so a really strong athlete can play on a high level right away because they can just do the jobs on the field that you need a really good athlete for. So in the back of the field, we have the two handlers here who are handling a lot with the disc. And this is something a more experienced player would do. While downfield, we have more cutters where we need faster players.
And aside from the first team within the club of Force Elektro, we also have many other teams. We have a ladies team, and actually indoor this year we had two ladies teams, so a more competitive one and a more casual one. And for the men's divisions, we tend to have 3 or 4 outdoor teams. So our first team are national champions, and as you go to the second, third, or fourth team, the commitment and the level slightly decreases. So if you're a player that just wants to play for fun here and there, join some practice a few times a week, the club can offer that. If you're a serious athlete that wants to compete at the highest level, train many hours a week, push yourself physically but also to learn a new sport, then we also have that to provide to you. Aside from that, we also have a lot of social events. We like to go to drinks, do activities, all these kind of things, have some parties. So it's a great social club. And aside from that, we also have a mixed season, which is where men and women both play on the same team, and that's also really fun. So lots to offer. There's something for everyone. You'll always be able to find a place in the club. So we see the disc being checked in now. Pass upfield to Danny there. Back to Domi. This is a nice throw up the field. To Camilo. Now to Patrick. And that's a long shot up to Camilo.
That's not an ideal catch. It was not how you meant to do it.
But we can see there that Camilo, the one that unfortunately just dropped the disc, he came from basketball. Played quite high level basketball, but decided to transition to Ultimate Frisbee. And there we see two big assets that you need in Ultimate, but also that makes it really easy to pick up quickly. Speed and jumping ability. The reason he was able to make that deep cut and get free was because he was very fast. And if you're fast and you can jump, that means you can be an asset on the field. Because you can then have one of the more experienced players throw it to you, and you can still be the scoring player at the end of the day.
And so one of the things about Ultimate Frisbee is that we don't just play it on grass. We also play it on sand. That's called Beach Ultimate, which is also popular, but there's no serious competition in the Netherlands. And then there's also indoor. So during the winter months, we actually play indoors. This particular game was filmed sometime in March, I believe.
So what we see now is a call on the field. So one of the interesting things about Ultimate Frisbee is there are no referees, which means that the players call their own fouls, their own stall outs, which is when you take too long to throw the disc, you only have 10 seconds to throw the disc every time. If someone travels, so just like in basketball, you can't move with the ball unless you're dribbling. So if someone travels, that can be called. And there's a whole set of rules to decide what happens in those situations, what happens if you agree, what happens if you disagree. Which makes it quite a special game because you have to sort out everything by yourself.
So Patrick just called a timeout, which is every team has one timeout per half, I believe, in Dutch competition, which means you can regroup, you can discuss with your team. This is especially something that people would do a lot in a situation where the players are very tired. Take a breather, regroup, discuss some tactics, and then go out there and try to make it better. See another deep shot.
So as you can see, Ultimate Frisbee is a very fast-paced sport. There's a lot of running. Basically, when you're on the field, it's pretty much intervals all the time. You're sprinting, then you're stopping, then you're sprinting. This is just to get rid of your defender so you can get to the disc. We usually have teams ranging from about 17 to 15, 17 to 24 people, roughly. So you do get pretty much every other point off, but you really need it. By the end of one of these games, you should be very, very tired.
The competition is played around once every month, but for that you play 3 games on one competition day usually. And that gives you the ability to have a lot more weekends off, but when you go to competition, it's very physically strenuous.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons we train so much. So obviously the amount of training changes with which team you play for. Our first team in this season, we had a 3-hour training on Monday evening and a 2-hour training on Thursday evening. And that's, I mean, mainly a big part of that is just to train your body. And the other part of it is to get the tactics in and get used to playing with each other, get the chemistry in, get the skills in. But if you play for the second team, for example, that you could be training 1 or 2 times a week. And if you don't want to play competition at all, you can just join pickup, which is usually Wednesday evenings, and that's where we just set up a field and anyone in the club can come play, which is also good fun. So this, what we're seeing now, is a zone, as we mentioned earlier. The zone just caused a turnover, but if we see a zone again, we'll explain that a little further.
So on this particular competition day, unfortunately we didn't have our full squad to disposal. So we had a couple injured players. We had a couple players who were not available. So therefore, that's why you see a lot of the same players on the field. But as Patrick said before, we have usually quite a big squad, up to 21 players in Dutch competition, even more at international tournaments. And so that means that usually you play 1 point, and then you take a point rest, and then you play a point, and then you take a point rest. So you play around 1 and 2 points, sometimes 1 and 3.
So here we see the zone again. So we have 3 people pressuring the person with the disc. Then we have a line of 3 behind that, 1 in the middle and 2 wings, and then 1 deep person to stop any deep shots. So that way you kind of cover all the areas in the field and force them to play lots of quick passes instead of long shots, because that's more difficult.
So we just saw one of our defenders in white force a turnover. He knocked the disc down to the ground, and then he just caught the disc in the end zone for a score for Force Elektro. Now we see a man-to-man defense from Force Elektro, so we're trying a little bit different tactics due to the wind conditions. And the idea of a man-to-man is for every person to shut down the person that they're assigned to. And so in this type of defense, it's very physically, you just need to outsprint the person that you're playing against. So you just need to try to be faster than them. And of course there's some mental aspect to that with positioning your body right and so on.
So as Klaus mentioned earlier, it's a non-contact sport, which means you could also kind of counterintuitively use your body to your advantage. It means that if you're in a space, no one can run through you or no one can claim that space, which means you can position your body to block off an area where they're going to run. So that's one of the ways you can use your body. And I mean, towards higher levels, there is a little more physicality accepted, but that's for the teams to decide, as there are no referees. So we see the disc being checked in at the corner of the end zone, passed up to the field, passed again, but it's dropped. Here we're actually playing a team in the second division. So this isn't the highest level game that you'll get in the Dutch competition. What you'll see as the level gets higher is a lot less mistakes and some longer points. So it means that that it's not as easy to get open. It means that the defenders are better, which means that like people might be diving over your shoulder to try and get a block. People will be jumping really high to try and sky the disc, get it away from you. So it's very intense and a lot more exciting to watch than maybe this game right now. But this game is good to kind of show the basics and see how the game is played.
So what we have right now, why there was a pause on the field, is that there was a foul call, and then there was some discussion about whether that was a foul or not. And the opposing player can either agree. If the player agrees, then the foul stands. And if the player disagrees, and they can have a discussion about it, if they can't come to an agreement, then the disc will go back to the last point on the field where both players agree that the disc was legally.
So we see now quick disc movement, which is good.
That was a hand block right there. That's a very embarrassing mistake that happens sometimes. Basically, when you're playing defense, if you can get your hand in the way as they throw, that's what we call a hand block, and that's also possible with your feet, and that's called a foot block then.
So here we see Jasper, the guy that just got the block in the white t-shirt, number 85. He was actually only playing for, I think, about a month or two. At this point, he also came from basketball, but he's athletic, he's tall, he's strong, he can jump, so that's why he's a really useful player on the field. So, and a close bid there. Missed the disc, tried diving for it again, putting his body on the line, but didn't manage to come up with it. But it just goes to show that even newer players, even if you haven't been playing that long, we have a system to train you up, to get you up to the basics really quick and be able to play on a high level team and really abuse our athleticism, abuse this young playing style, and take down some of the more experienced teams in the Netherlands. There we see a score by us. And we're starting with a pull again, so the team that just scored throws the disc all the way to the other side. And then we start playing. Here we see that zone again, but there was a foul call. One of our players, George there I think, kind of ran into someone accidentally, so he called a little bit of a foul. So then the disc will be tapped on the ground or tapped by the player, and we'll start again. This is the zone.
In this type of zone, we play what's called an arrowhead, which means that we have 3 players in front, forming an arrow with 1 player right in front of the disc and 2 players behind him. And those 3 players form that arrow and try to prevent the disc from any short passes or any long passes. Basically try to prevent the disc from going upfield. And then downfield, we also have more defenders who are covering different positions in the field. So we have 1 deep defender, we have 2 on the wings, and then we have 1 person who's a little bit in the middle, and that's number 21 right there.
But we see there's only 1 person who's actually close to the person with the disc, and that's because you're not allowed to be with 2 people within 3 meters of the disc. So that's why.
So we have another timeout call there. I believe it's not allowed to call a second timeout in the first half, so that might have been a mistake. So because we already had a timeout call before, this timeout call was illegal, and that's what they're discussing right now.
Class, what's the funnest part of Ultimate for you? Why do you play the sport?
I would say the funnest part of Ultimate is either running deep, just a one-on-one with someone else. It's just a sprint, and then you see who can jump highest, who can get the disc. It's pretty much as raw as it gets in terms of sports. It's just one-on-one. See who wins athletically. Or another part, layouts. So we've been seeing a couple of those, not as many as we'd like to see, but we've seen a couple of those in this game. So that's where you jump, you're meant to land on your chest, and either to catch the disc if you couldn't catch it otherwise, or to block the disc if you're on defense. That's called the layout. That's another really spectacular part of the sport. That's actually quite unique to Ultimate in terms of how often it happens.
Nice.
What about you, Patrick? What's your favorite part?
Yeah, to be honest, I think I would agree with you that the high jumps one on one trying to beat someone is very exciting. Also the layouts. I mean, it gives you a great feeling once you're just running full speed and there's a disc falling down in front of you and you have to just jump and try and get it. But something I also really like is kind of the competitiveness and the drive that you need to play the game. Like when you're on the field and it's just you against an opponent, and you've got to shut them down or like try and break their ankles as you would in basketball. Just get open. It's fun to just take that matchup on, be competitive, be aggressive. But I also really like that you're doing it with a whole team. By the end of the season, like these guys are great friends. I mean, you spend 5 hours per week grinding it out at training. Sometimes a lot of the time it's really fun, but you'll have your dips, you'll have your moments where you need to regroup. So I think the team aspect is also great, you know. These guys become some of your best friends at the end of the day.
Yeah, especially traveling to international tournaments, traveling to competition together, it really helps build that team bond. So, for example, this year, unfortunately, our season was cut short due to Corona. But in the beginning of March, we flew to Ireland with the first team, where we played a tournament called Siege of Limerick. One of the better tournaments in Europe. And we had other tournaments. We had other tournaments planned. For example, Tom Sternay in Belgium. So those are really fun experiences with the whole team as well.
So we just see an injury there. That looks like an ankle injury, or he got stepped on. Rolling around a little bit like a football player, but happens. So then we get a substitute. Another cool thing about Ultimate that maybe you don't have so much in other sports is how the weather can affect how you play the game. So if it's really windy, for example, you might play more of a zone, force them to play a lot of passes, just trying to catch them out with the wind, because throwing in the wind is quite challenging. You have to put a lot of spin on the disc. You can't really throw as far because it's much harder. So that's something that you really have to take into account. But we never really cancel games because of the wind. We never really cancel games because of the rain. So, I mean, you can play on the sunniest days where it's super nice warm weather. But you also, as we experienced when we went to a tournament in Ireland recently, Siege of Limerick, you can also play when it's hailing down and it's raining sideways. And it just changes the game completely, actually. So you have to be prepared for everything. So we see a long shot up, and it's blocked. So therefore, our team can pick it up again. It's being picked up by Dominic Benz, who is also the trainer of the team this year. Passed up the field to Jors. He looks for the long shot, but turns around again and decides to play it short. It's passed up line to Domi. Domi's looking upfield, but it takes a while for something to open up. So right now we're just working it up that sideline. And then we decide nothing else is open up the sideline, so we decide to swing the disc back and go for another avenue. And unfortunately that's dropped. Little fumble. So now we're back on defense. So what we see here is the Amsterdam team, the black team, is playing a horizontal stack. So the four cutters further up the field are lined up in a horizontal line. That's one of the tactics you can play. That's used to keep the deep space clear, but also the in space, so that you have an option to cut in and get the disc, or cut deep to get the disc.
So what you'll see us play at Force Elektro a lot is something called the vert stack, which I'm sure we'll see later. That's another option in which the offensive players will be lined up in a vertical line. And we just saw a great D from Danny.
Danny, he was one of the shortest guys on the team, but he can jump really high, so can get some really nice blocks in the end zone. So this is the vertical stack class I was talking about.
Yeah. So here you can see we have our players lined up vertically. What this actually allows us to do is to have space on the right and the left side of the field. And then we can still shoot it deep if we have good throws that can go deep, because our players should be close enough to the disc that the deep space is still open.
We have an injury call there. I didn't really see what happened. Maybe there's some contact, or maybe Lenny was just breaking his ankles, but did you see that, class?
Yeah, I think Lenny broke his ankles.
Damn.
Damn, Lenny.
So now we just wait for the substitutes to come in, make sure everyone was in the same position, and the disc is checked in by tapping the ground. That's a deep shot up. And unfortunately, it was a bad throw by me, brought down a little bit by the wind, which is why when you're playing in the wind, it's a little hard to throw those deep shots. I don't really see what happened there, but looks like I'm on the floor.
Looks like Patrick got a little bit hurt.
Yeah.
That's no problem. We'll bring him to the side of the field, get him some tissues so he can cry it out, and then we'll be back. We'll be back on the field in no time.
So I think what we're seeing here is actually quite a serious injury with a completely justified reaction.
What do you think this injury is?
So I think I got tripped up or stood on. So I think this guy just stood on my foot.
Oh man, that sounds horrible.
Yeah, it was really, really horrible, but it's all good. We don't raise our team to be weak, so here I am, getting back up. Although we do not condone playing through any serious injuries and advise seeking medical help. So now we're back on defense, playing man-to-man, trying to stay close by. And this is really where if you're quick, you've got good footwork, and that you can really keep up with your person, you're so close that you can really prevent or get a block on if your person gets past the disc, which is exactly what we want. We see Camilo here in the backfield with the blue tights and the white shoes. Let's just look at him, see how he plays defense, as he's one of our best defenders there. So right now he's looking at the disc a bit as well as his player, and now he's going to run in with his player to try and apply some pressure. He turns his back there, which is not a great move because then you lose sight of your player. However, he managed to recover that space, and he's really just running and keeping up with his player.
So one of the reasons we might be seeing a little bit more turnovers in this game is, as Patrick said before, the game changes with the weather conditions. So on this day, I believe it was drizzling a little bit. It's cold. I think we have a nice wind, especially on these fields that we're playing on now. There's always a nice wind coming through. So that's the reason that we might see a few more turnovers as the disc becomes a little bit less predictable to catch as it moves through the wind. And also harder to throw.
So unfortunately it was a little overthrown there, but luckily for us the other team threw it right back into the ground. So what we'll see actually in the highest level of games, like the finals we played later this season, I think in that whole game there were maximum 8 to 10 turnovers, something like that, which means that every time you manage to block the disc, it's a huge deal, because usually the offensive lines of both teams are so good that they'll very rarely turn the disc over, because they're consistent and they're good at cutting. So when you get a block and then you score it, it's called a break point. So it's like in tennis, when one person has the serve, they're usually going to score that point because they have the upper hand. Here, if we're on serve, it means that your team, if you're being served to in a way, or no, if you're serving, you'll catch the disc when the pull goes up. So you get the disc, after the pull, which means you should be able to score if you don't turn it over. So you see Wouter there, give go up line, nice move, and pass it to Camilo, who lets it fly through his hands for some reason. I don't know why he did that, guys.
I don't know either.
Now we're coming out in the zone again. So what's actually the main reason you play a zone class? Like, do you want to get a block, or do you want to apply pressure in a different way?
Yeah, so some of the reasons that we play a zone is that it could be in a windy condition, like here, as you might be able to hear on the audio. So in a windy condition, we know that, let's say, 1 in 10, 1 in 20, if it's a really good team, 1 in 30 passes is going to be a turnover, simply because of the wind. So if we can play that zone, we're going to stop the deep passes that go downwind. So just like there, we made them throw it back and forth a lot. They weren't really able to get it downfield, so we actually open up a little bit of space for them to throw, but just laterally across the field. And we assume that if they take enough of those throws, they'll drop one of them. And so obviously, as the level gets higher, we have to apply more and more pressure to make sure some of those drops happen. So here, we got the turnover, we played a good zone, we didn't let them get through, and then we dropped the disc in the end zone, which is not what we want to do. Now we have them stuck on the line, which is an important part of Ultimate as well. A lot of the time we want to keep the team that's on the line, we want to keep them there, and we use the sideline as another defender.
So again, we see this vertical stack in the end zone. So we have 2 handlers in the backfield. So that's here, Jos, number 61, and the person standing to the right of him, Wouter. And we're going to make some cuts, either from the handlers, that's called a handler cut, or cuts from the back of the stack, which is the cutters making cuts. And once again, I mean, you can see that Klaas and I, we're cringing a little bit from watching this, because as trainers, we don't like to see our team make mistakes. But that's part of the game. You've got to keep getting better. This was quite early on in the season, so after this competition day, we really made sure to focus on our throwing and catching, and make ourselves an elite team.
Yeah, so this game is filmed maybe 1 month into the season. The whole season of outdoor is maybe 5 or 6 months long. So by the end of that season, we can definitely see a lot of strides in progress. And another important thing to remember here, that we didn't have a big squad. So due to that, the players are a lot more tired and a lot more prone to make mistakes.
That's a nice catch from Camilo. Another nice catch. So now we're just outside the end zone trying to score. Pass up the field, and it's jumped in by Jos. So he jumped from outside the end zone, but he caught the disc in the air and landed in, so therefore it's a score.
Now we're playing a man-to-man defense again. So that's just a turnover from AUC. That's exactly what we want to force, and now hopefully we'll put it in.
So we have now me picking up the disc. I pass it over to Danny, and then go back up line. But my defender was too close, so it wasn't thrown to me. So here we see George indicating that he was pushed, so it was a foul. Oh, he retracted it again. I don't know what went on there.
Yeah, one thing that might have happened, he could have felt like he was pushed, but then he could say that didn't actually affect his play, that he wouldn't have been able to catch the disc either way. And if it didn't affect the play, then we let the turnover stand. Then he pick up the disc. And that's a nice D right there from AUC.
I'd just like to stress to all the viewers that this game's a little bit scrappy. So if you want to see some more high level Ultimate, we'd recommend watching some Ultimate on YouTube, because then you can also get an insight into what the highest level looks like, which is what does happen in a better game when the conditions are a little bit better and the teams are a bit more worked in.
One of my favorite games to watch is USA versus Japan, 2016. That's a really good game of Ultimate to watch if you're looking for one. USA versus Japan 2016. Patrick, what are some of your favorite games to watch?
Honestly, one of my favorite games to watch is New York Pony versus Seattle Sockeye in U.S. Nationals. I mean, they're some of the two best club teams in the world, and it's a really, really great game to watch. It's very intense, very fiery, great defensive blocks, but also really, really clean offense. And there you can really see the strategies and structures really nicely. And it's also, honestly, it's good showmanship, very intense game, lots of fire, lots of emotions, so yeah.
So in this case right now, we just saw the disc went out of bounds. Due to that, it's going to be a turnover. Force Elektro, we had the disc, we threw it out of bounds, and now AUC, the black team, gets possession of the disc, where the disc went out.
If you guys want to come try Ultimate Frisbee out, you can follow us on Instagram at Force Elektro, or check out the website or Facebook. Our website is force-elektro.nl. You'll find all the information on how to join our practice for free, come try it out, become a member, training times, all these kind of things there. Also, feel free to send us a message on Instagram, message on Facebook. We'll be happy to answer your questions. And if you want some more information, just come to one of our trainings, and I will be happy to help you out.
So that was a score from AUC right there. We let him get open deep. Our defender was trying to defend in too much, got goaded in by the disc, and then lost track of his defender going deep. So now we get the disc again on the pull, and we're going to center the disc to our center handler.
In cut there from Camilo. He throws it back around behind to Tommy. So right now we're being quite patient. And
That was a drop right there by Patrick.
Yeah. Sometimes these things happen, but what you can do is learn from it and try and get better for the next one. Although, I think I should have done a few burpees for that drop. That was a pretty easy drop. So if you have been playing football, hockey, or basketball in your life, and you want to come join one of our trainings and see how you can play Ultimate, feel free to come and give it a try. I think you'll see that a lot of your skills are very transferable, and you'll pick sports up really quickly and meet some great people and have a great season with us.
Yeah, definitely. It's a lot of fun. Definitely feel free to come try it out at intro practices. So we start every year. We start from the basics on the first days of our intro practices to get people to get to know the game. Then we have a basic fall league where you'll play some easy games, and after that there's tryouts, and then you get selected for a team.
And when we're selecting our teams, especially for the first team, I mean, even if you've never played Ultimate Frisbee before, but you're athletic, you've got potential, and you're really willing to learn, you're competitive and you're driven, I mean, we can see that, and we'll take you, even if you're not that good yet, if we can see the potential, we'll train you up for a year, and then you might be able to win a national championship with us, if that's the result of the year, which is always our aim. We always aim for the top. We're actually undefeated this year, but that's because there wasn't any outdoor season. So we're still the national champions, and it's our intention to defend that title again this year, and hold the national title for 3 years in a row. So that's a nice cut there by George. So what happened there was he sprinted really hard deep, making his defender think that he was going to go deep, and then turned around in, which means that his defender was still going deep while he turned in, which means he could have some meters and catch the disc. See AUC moving around the disc a little bit with the handlers in the backfield. We're playing man-to-man defense. They get a quick throw upfield. We're applying a lot of pressure, and that means they have to keep swinging it around, and resulted in a turnover at the end of the day. It's a long shot up. And an amazing grab by Max there. Disc was a little bit far, so he had to dive for it, picks it up, and scores quickly to dummy in the end zone.
So here we see a vert stack offense again. So our players are standing in a stack which is vertical down the field, which is giving us open space on both sides of the fields, especially in front of the thrower.
What we're seeing as well is if we look upfield for a few seconds, because we only have 10 seconds to throw the disc and there are no available cuts. Oh, that's a nice shot up in the air, but dropped by Camilo again. But what we're seeing is, if we look upfield for a few seconds and there's nothing available, we'll then look to our handlers again and try and reset the disc. So pass it so that we can get another 10 seconds to look around.
And here you see us setting up a zone.
You know, maybe I'll just explain why this sport is called Ultimate. I mean, it was given that name because they saw it as the ultimate sport because it kind of took the best aspects from all sports. So if you're a basketball player, maybe this will give you a little more running or like long sprints than you're used to. So making deep cuts is a little bit of a bigger field compared to what you're used to. So you can still do your skying, you can still dunk on people by skying them, still get that aspect of everything and shutting people down on defense, but you'll be able to sprint a bit more. If you're coming from football or hockey, maybe you're a bit used to running a bit slower or some longer distances, but you'll still be doing sprints and intervals. But this Ultimate will give you that, but it would also give you the skying and the jumping part of the sports that maybe you're missing, and you can beat people in that sense. So I mean, it'll bring together lots of fun aspects of different sports. So if you're an athlete, if you've played basketball, hockey, football, or any other sports, I mean, I'm missing out a lot of sports here, but those are just kind of the basics that we know. I've played a lot in the Netherlands. Please come give us a try. I guarantee you'll have a good time, and maybe there's a future for you in the sports of Ultimate, and you become one of the best players after a couple of years.
Yeah, and the athleticism and the toughness aspect of the sport is something that I know most people that have not played the sport seriously before really overlook. That's something that I think everyone tells me after they play it for the first time is like, wow, this is actually a really tiring sport. This actually requires a lot of athleticism.
Yeah, I mean, towards the end of the season, I mean, class... There's a little collision there over there. But towards the end of the season, I mean, class was running our strength and conditioning trainings, and I mean, we were doing a lot of conditioning. I mean, pushing ourselves really hard. I mean, during the season, we even had some people puke because they pushed themselves that hard. I mean, it's not healthy to puke, but I mean, it just goes to show like the intensity and the way people push themselves. And a lot of our guys, I think 80% of this team was in the gym strengthening their bodies because every extra bit of force, every extra bit of explosiveness you can get will help you against the best teams in the Netherlands, because those guys are athletes. And yeah, you really need that. It's a really intense sport. So we'll be doing a lot of that stuff. It should be very tired. And of course, here we can see a conversation between me and the other player, trying to decide what happened and who gets the advantage. I'd just like to say we're talking about men's ultimate here a lot, because I mean, this is a men's game, and Klaas and I are both heavily involved in this team. But we also have mixed, of which I'm a trainer now, and the women's ultimate. Women's ultimate at Delft is getting way more competitive. I mean, they ended 4th in the country in the indoor competition. So if you're a lady and you're athletic, you want to try out a new sport, we'd highly recommend giving it a try. It's a great club, a lot of great people you'll meet as well. And yeah, all the same things. It's very athletic, it's very fun, you'll get pushed, all of that good stuff.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
All right. Thanks, guys, for tuning in, and we hope to see you at intro practices.
Yeah. Thanks for listening and watching, guys.